Namawa. After a long time, I'm making this video on a new book. The book is titled Critical Analysis of the Dating of the Rāmāyaṇa to 12209 BC. Missing Evidence, Logical Errors. The book is authored by Dr. Ram Mohan Roy. You find his name here, who is the author of the book 0 Points of Vedic Astronomy. He has written many other articles in peer-reviewed journals on astronomy, including Jain astronomy and Indian astronomy. So the book has my foreword, and this book is a rebuttal to this book, which is 12209 BCE, Rāmāyaṇa Yuddha by Nilesh Oak, who many of you know as a popular author. Nilesh Oak in the last few years has proposed dates for many Sanskrit texts, including the Rig Veda, the Rāmāyaṇa, the Sushrut Samhita, the Mahabharata, and so on. And some of his dates, in fact, all of his dates are, pun intended, astronomical. So he's taken this cottage industry of archaeastronomy or dating Indian texts and taken it to the most ridiculous extremes. To bring some sense into our minds, here comes Dr. Ram Mohan Roy, who is a very scientific person who has a PhD and a graduate of IIT Kanpur. I'll provide a link to this book in the video description, and also a link to Dr. Ram Mohan Roy's Twitter handle in the description of this video. Dr. Ram Mohan Roy has gone through this book of Nilesh Oak with a fine comb, and he has found so many errors to effectively state that there's nothing which is of merit in this book. So I'll read out some parts of my foreword to this book, and we'll discuss some aspects of this book in details. And interestingly, this book is available for free download till tomorrow on Amazon. So if you go to the links that I provide in this video, I'll also provide a link to the book where from where you can download this book for free, the soft copy. So this book is by Mount Meru Publishing, and it was published late last year. It was recently released, and Dr. Ram Mohan Roy sent me 2 copies. So I'll read out some parts from my foreword. So in 1981, the state of Louisiana in the United States enacted the Creationism Act. And what did this act require? The act mandated that schools, public schools, must teach quote unquote creation science also if they teach evolutionary science. What happened later? In 1987, there was a landmark ruling by the United States Supreme Court, and it ruled that the Creationism Act was unconstitutional, and that creationism cannot be taught as a science in United States, in public schools in the United States. There was another landmark case in 2005, and where a district judge in the United States, John E. Jones III, he ruled that it was unconstitutional for a district to teach intelligent design as an alternative to evolution in schools. This judge, John E. Jones III, was in fact a Republican, and he was an appointee of the then US President George W. Bush, George W. Bush, or the Junior Bush, who we know supported teaching intelligent design. Please give me a moment. There's somebody at the door. Sorry for the trouble. So we were talking about George W. Bush, who supported teaching intelligent design, and he was an appointee of George W. Bush. John E. Jones III, who ruled that creationism or intelligent design cannot be taught as an alternative to evolution in schools. And this judgment was hailed because John E. Jones III was not from a scientific background. He was not trained in science, and yet drew a clear distinction between science and faith. Faith is blind, science is not blind. Faith works on belief, science does not work on belief, instead it works on evidence. Millions of Hindus believe, and this is no way to disrespect their faith. In fact, I myself believe when I'm worshipping. So millions of Hindus believe that the Rāmāyaṇa was composed hundreds of thousands of years ago. This is not a scientific date for the text of the Ramayana, and it cannot be taught in Indian schools as science or as history. Indeed, it is not taught. When I was young in the 1990s, I was studying at school, and when my children are studying at school today, history texts have taught us that the Ramayana was authored in the first millennium BCE. This is the established theory today. Love it or hate it, it is the established theory. And even in the tradition of traditional scholarship of the Ramayana, like the established theory says, that certain parts of the Ramayana were added later, even in the tradition of Sanskrit commentaries on the Ramayana, certain parts of the Ramayana have been labeled as Prakshipta by commentators like Govinda Raja, Shiva Sahaya, or the Kataka commentary, the author of the Kataka commentary, Madhava Yogi. Let's now come to chronological dating of Sanskrit texts or any ancient text. This is science. This works on evidence. There is a well-established process of peer review in science where scientific or academic work is scrutinized by experts in the same field. These experts are academics with established credentials and not self-styled scholars. If I'm proposing a new theory, for example in linguistics, I cannot claim that my theory is a success or it has been successfully accepted before peer reviews, before experts in the field of linguistics ratify that theory and accept it for example, for publication in a peer-reviewed journal. Unless a newly proposed date for a text or an event passes through the litmus test of peer review, it can hardly be considered serious or acceptable. Let's take a digression. Let's take a look at all the various dates that have been proposed for the text of the Mahabharata or for the war of the Mahabharata by Indian scholars. So Professor R.N. Iyengar had proposed a date of 1478 BCE in a peer-reviewed journal, as far as I recall. Ashok Bhatnagar had proposed a date of 1793 BC. Again, his work was in a peer-reviewed journal. These are two examples I know which from Indian scholars who have dated the war of the Mahabharata to the second millennium BCE and have published their work as a book or in a peer-reviewed journal. And Ashok Bhatnagar and R.N. Iyengar are both good scholars. Now let's look at some extreme dates. B.N. and Achar proposed the date 3067 BC. In fact, this is the date that Dr. Manish Pandit also agrees with. M.L. Raja has proposed the date that it happened sometime before 3137 BC. Dr. Jayashree Saranathan's date is 3136 BC. Dr. S. Balakrishna's date is 3129 BC. Dr. Vedveer Arya's date is 3162 BC. And Nilesh Oak and P.V. Vartak, their date is 5561 BCE. So with such a wide range of dates for the same event, which is the Mahabharata war, we can say with conviction that all except one of these dates is wrong, and very likely all of them are wrong. So this is the set of dates we are dealing with from 2nd millennium to Nilesh Oak pulling it to 6th millennium BCE. And even there, he is a noticeable outlier, an astronomical outlier, pun intended. So let's come back to this book. Why this book is needed? So I write in the foreword, Nilesh Oak, a self-proclaimed expert in dating and many other fields, including even quantum mechanics, has proposed dates for many Indian texts which have become popular among some circles, especially among right-leaning people and platforms in India. Some of these platforms have hosted me for their talk. Some of these the same platforms have hosted Nilesh Oak. So there's nothing personal, but I'm saying it as dispassionately as I can that these dates have become popular among some circles, among right-leaning people and certain platforms. Popularity can be a measure of likability, but popularity is not a measure of scientificness. Many theories are popular. For example, the moon landing conspiracy theories, they are popular. But can hardly be considered scientific. Nilesh Oak claims that his dates are scientific, and he even equates, quite ludicrously, the importance of one of his observations to the importance of discoveries made by Copernicus, Kepler, and Galileo. The claim is ludicrous because Oak's assumptions, his dating methodology, and conclusions are flawed to the core. They have never gone through the process of peer review. Mark my words. Nilesh Oak's dates have never gone through the process of peer review or academic scrutiny. By his own admission, and Oak himself admits it, he has no first-hand knowledge of Sanskrit, the language of the text that he is dating. All his knowledge of the text comes from translations, mistranslations, and his own fanciful and inane interpretations. For example, taking similes and metaphors involving seasons and heavenly bodies as factual statements of seasons and astronomical observations. I'll give you an example. It's covered amply by Dr. Roy in this very useful book. So Nilesh Oak's first linchpin for the dating of the Ramayana is that his claim is that Lord Rama was born in Sharad season. And what's his proof? His proof is first of its element is that it cannot be later than 5561 BC because that's his date for the Mahabharata. So that's his one of his bounds for the dates. And then he takes the evidence of blooming of flowers as a reference to the Sharad season. Naturally, quite naturally, it happens today, and it is seen in many Indian texts, right from the Ramayana and the Mahabharata to Kalidasa's works, that blooming of flowers is a reference to the Vasanta season. The most natural reference, or the most obvious reference, is to Vasanta. It's not a specific reference, yes. But so what he says is, what Nilesh Oak says in his book is that blossoming groves means Sharad. And that's as ludicrous as anything I can think. His corroboration is some similes. So for example, Ayodhya Kand, second chapter, verse 17. Iti bruvantam mudita agre, the second line, vrishtimantam mahamegham naradanta iva barhina. So the translation is, having thus heard King Dasharatha speak, the kings acclaimed him with delight, like peacocks crying to see thick clouds. So here Valmiki is offering a simile. The kings were delighted just like peacocks who cry when they see thick clouds. Now Nilesh Oak says that these are proof of the Sharad season. These are metaphors for the Sharad season. This is a simile. This expression is a simile. For example, the assembly was illumined by Rama like the moon dazzling the clear autumnal sky. Right? So, Sharadi Dyaurivenduna, Sharat Chandra Nibhanana. So, if somebody writes in Sanskrit literature, Sharat Chandra Nibhanana, that his face was like the moon of the autumn or moon of the Sharad, the Nilesh Oak conclusion is that it was during the Sharad season that the event that's being described was in the Sharad season. This is completely unacceptable from a linguistic point of view. But that is what Nilesh Oak counts as evidence. Dr. Roy contradicts this by giving a counter reference where in the same context there is a simile involving rainy season. And the word uses pravrishiva mahanadya sprishtam kulam navambasa, like a great river in the pravrish or in the rainy season. It occurs in the same context of the birth of Rama. However, if we use Oak's logic here, we would have to conclude that the Varsha season was right in the middle of the Sharad season. So it makes no sense at all. These are kinds of similes and metaphors which are poetic expressions which Oak interprets as astronomical observations. Oak's assumptions are baseless and his leaps of faith are strange. Actual, direct and unambiguous statements about seasons and months in the dated text, for example, verse 12, 171:18 of the Mahabharata. In the critical edition, it's verse 12, 165:16, clearly states that the full moon day of Kartika coincided with the end of the Sharad season, autumn. Such statements, which are unambiguous and clear, are ignored by Oak. Instead, upamas, similes, or rupakas, metaphors involving seasons, for example, the face of a character resembling the autumnal or eclipsed moon, are taken as actual references to seasons or astronomical events like an eclipse. Such logic is not just simplistic, it is downright bizarre. By such logic, if you were to date Shakespeare's sonnets, you would say that Shakespeare wrote the sonnet number 18, which begins with "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day," during the day in the summer season. That is the logic that Nilesh Oak follows, and this is the logic on which his linchpins or his bounds are based. So the whole theory is baseless. In addition to serious problems of logic and coherence, Oak's research is not at all transparent. A key aspect of the scientific theory is its falsifiability. Can it be refuted? For it to be refuted, there have to be clear references. If somebody claims that there are 575 corroborations to their theory, the list should be out in public. If somebody claims that there are 500 corroborations to their theory and there is no such list, there's no such list publicly available, then there's something wrong. So Oak claims hundreds of corroborations for his dates, but the list is not public. He neither talks about or cares about the margin of probability of error or confidence interval in his dates based on software simulations. A core ethic of scientific research is full transparency. If that does not exist, a work can hardly be considered scientific. Due to all these reasons, Oak's work is not science. I repeat, Nilesh Oak works are not science. They are faith or belief disguised as science. It is no surprise that Oak's states have not and will never pass any serious scholarly scrutiny. They will always remain fringe entertainment and never become mainstream. This is clear at first reading to any scholar of Sanskrit. So any scholar of Sanskrit who reads the work of Nilesh Neelkant Oak, it becomes amply clear that this is all fringe entertainment. This is not serious history or science or linguistics. However, there's a large number of people who have blind faith in Oak's beliefs. It is important for such people to see the true picture and understand where, how, and why Oak's work is totally flawed. For this reason, this book by Dr. Ram Mohan Roy, a genuine scholar with many publications in refereed journals, is of great importance. With a fine comb, Dr. Roy has painstakingly gone through the many assumptions, claims, and conclusions of Oak's date for the Rāmāyaṇa. And he has successfully highlighted the flaws, the endless flaws in Oak's high chronology. On the linguistic front, Dr. Roy relies on multiple published translations for all the verses he quotes. So the good thing about Dr. Roy's work is all the verses that Nilesh Oak has cited in his works to build up this high chronology. Dr. Roy has gone through all the verses himself, and he has seen multiple translations, not just one translation of these verses. He relies on multiple published translations, and which is quite the opposite of Oak, who makes up his translations and interpretations as it suits him. On the astronomical front also, Dr. Roy, who has published articles on astronomy as well, he presents evidence from multiple astronomy software tools to question and often contradict Oak's claims based on astronomy software. Dr. Roy highlights the pitfalls of blind reliance on astronomy software with several convincing examples. The author cites as many as 13 Sanskrit texts to make a very important and accurate point. Almost all major Sanskrit texts, including the Rāmāyaṇa and the Mahabharata, allude to the same standard season lunisolar month mapping. Same or slightly different. This in itself invalidates Oak's dates for both the Rāmāyaṇa and the Mahabharata. Examining the corroborations claimed by Oak, Dr. Roy reaches a conclusion, which I fully agree with, that Oak has zero corroborations for his proposed date of the Rāmāyaṇa, while he claims that he has more than 575. By the way, the list is not public. With simple language and a very readable style, this book by Dr. Roy, critical analysis of the dating of the Rāmāyaṇa to 12209 BCE, is easy to understand for a layperson. At the same time, copious references make it appealing to scholars also. I wholeheartedly congratulate Dr. Roy for coming up with this much needed work and wish that the book serves as a wake up call for all those who have blind faith in Oak's beliefs. And there are many of them, right leaning. I hope the book also precipitates a rethink on the part of the platforms and organizations who are unwittingly making a joke of themselves by presenting multidisciplinary pseudo scholarship spanning pseudoscience, pseudo history, pseudo linguistics, and several other pseudo fields as scientific work. So that was my foreword. The book has, I think, 7 to 8 chapters. I'm sorry, it has 10 chapters, including conclusions. And in the first few chapters, Dr. Roy has invalidated each of the linchpins, the so-called linchpin that Oak claims for the date of the Rāmāyaṇa. For example, Oak claims Rama was born in the Sharat season. Dr. Roy contradicts this. Oak claims that Ashwin month was in Vasant season. Dr. Roy contradicts this. Oak claims that the sun was near Pushya during Hemant season. I have written a long article on Medium contradicting the same claim of Oak, after going through as many as 11 or 12 different translations of the verse in question, and also tracing the source of Oak's misinterpretation to a mistranslation by Satvalekar. Oak has named a comet as Lakshman comet, and Dr. Roy proves in his book that the comet observed by Lakshman cannot be identified. Brahma Rashi is Abhijit. Dr. Roy has a chapter to contradict that. Bridge to Nowhere, and there's an interesting chapter, Bluffing and the Game of Numbers. That's the name of the chapter in this book, where Dr. Roy shows that there are 575 corroborations as per Oak, but as per Dr. Roy's calculation, there are 0, and this list is not public. Grouping of seasons and lunar months from the Vedic age till now. That's a very useful chapter for all those engaging in these high chronological dates. And fatal logical errors in the Vartak-Oak hypothesis. So, all in all, this is a great book, the perfect antidote to pseudoscience like this. So, I request you to read both books. Read this book, which I consider pseudoscience, and read this book, and make up your mind yourselves what is science and what is pseudoscience. So that is all for today. I hope you like the session. Please subscribe to my channel. I'll see you again very soon on another topic tomorrow or maybe after some days. Namo Buddhaya.